Well, howdy everybody. This is Cowboy Roy. The date is April 19th of 2014. And here is my video testimony. And before I get started, my baby boy is in my lap, so I thought I would get him in on the video too. Here's my little boy. Yeah, it's my buddy. Yeah, he's been my buddy for 11 years now. So, the only kid I'll ever have. But there's your claim to fame, little boy. You're on Cowboy Roy's testimony video. Okay. I was born May 16th of 1968 in Linwood, California. And I was born to a mother that was an alcoholic, and her and my dad fought all the time. And when I was 9 months old, before I was born, sorry about that, before I was born, I was stuck in my mom's rib cage, and they had to do a cesarean to get me out. And I was a month late, and the C-section was a success. But I had what they call a boat-shaped head, and when I was 9 months old, they had to do surgery on my head to save my life, to correct the shape of my head, and to keep me from going blind. And I don't know, take my hat off here for a second, but I have a scar that starts from here, let's see, here, and it goes all the way around my head. And they took a 1/4 inch bone from my forehead, and I have the scar right here in the middle of my forehead somewhere. And also I have a soft spot right here where the bone didn't heal all the way after the surgery. And for the first 9 years of my life, I had seizures. And I'm only going by what I was told, because of all the seizures and the sicknesses that I had. I don't remember any of my childhood, hardly at all. Anything from 10 years old and under is a blur, and what I do remember isn't good. Like I said, my mom and dad fought all the time, and they literally tried to kill each other many times over. And my mom told me that the seizures were so bad, the tips of my fingers would be bent back, touching my wrists, shake all over, turn blue, eyes rolled in the back of my head, the whole bit. And sorry, I get choked up thinking about it. The doctors told me and told my mom that I would have to take medicine until I was 18. Well, the last seizure that I had was in 1977. when I was 9 years old, and I quit taking the medicine 6 years later. And that was 4 years earlier than the doctor said that I would have to quit taking it, and I haven't had one. I'll be 46 next month, and I haven't had a seizure since I was 9 years old. And like I said, I was not raised in a Christian home. I did not go to church. My family was about as dysfunctional and unchristian as you can be. And throughout my teenage years, I was put down a lot, mainly from my dad. He said that I would never amount to anything, I'd never live on my own, never have a job, that I was stupid, all of this stuff. And I was a very backward, very shy little boy, young man at that time. And if it hadn't been for school, I don't think I would have made it. School was my outlet, and I spent a lot of time alone since I was the only child that my mom and dad had together. And during the last of my teenage years, my grandmother, we went to Oklahoma City and got her and moved her to California with us. And she prayed for me. I know she did. My mother had a grand mal seizure in 1979 from all the alcohol that she drank, and she died. But God allowed her to live, and she quit drinking. And then she started having Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, AA. And I've never touched a drop of alcohol. I've never smoked, never done drugs or anything like that. But I would sit in on those meetings, and I would hear stories that would make your hair stand on end of what drugs and alcohol could do to a person. And I saw so many that came in and out of them doors that died. Families were destroyed, including my own. And I didn't want any part of it. And for those that are out there that say that, well, because my grandfather and my dad were an alcoholic, my whole family was an alcoholic, that's going to make me want to. No, that is not true. I was around it, I was raised around it, never touched it. And I thank God for, I thank my God for that. And my grandmother covered me with her prayers. It's the only way that I know that I didn't. And then my dad and I were not close at all, and he died in November of 1990 when I was 22 years old. And then the events that led up to me being saved. I left California the first time, went to Arizona with my mother, and that was 8 months of pure misery. Misery. And after that, I came to Missouri the first time in March of 1992, and I stayed with an old family friend. 2 months later, we moved from Cadet to Potosi, and a week later, well, the events that led up to that was really something. I walked into the library, and I didn't know anybody, not a soul. And the librarian there, Miss Dorothy, she asked if she could help me, and I said, well, I was just feeling a little lost in more ways than one. 2 days before my birthday, she gave me $5. They said, go down to the restaurant and get you something to eat. It's so hard to believe this was 22 years ago, but I can still remember it like it was yesterday. I walked down to the restaurant, and after I had my dinner, they came out with a little cupcake and sang happy birthday to me. She had called down there and told them that I was coming. And I'm guessing that after she made the call to the restaurant, she called the Baptist church. And 2 days later, the youth pastor and one of the teenagers came to my apartment and invited me to church. And even though, no, I had never done those nasty things, and I was a good person, I was lost. I was lost without Jesus. And through all that I went through, I'm so glad that my heart was soft. I said, sure, I'll go. And the first sermon that I heard was on forgiveness. And I had a lot of resentment toward my dad for how he treated me. And I got up and I walked out of the service, went into the church office, and when a couple of the teenagers followed me, they asked me what was wrong. I told them. They gave me a tract. They said, when you get home tonight, read this. Midnight, May 23rd of 1992, I was sitting on the floor by my bed, and I read the tract, and I asked the Lord to come into my heart and save me. And it felt like the whole world had been lifted off my shoulders. And about 6 months later, I was baptized. And around that same time, I sang my first song in church. Just as nervous as a cat, long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And that song was Friends in High Places. And just a little bit of it. It was, I've got friends in high places, so high and not so far away. Yes, I've got friends in high places, and I'm gonna be with them someday. And then in December of 92, that family friend of mine passed away. And I left Missouri the first time. And I'm going to fast forward now several years. It took me really a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, to really grow spiritually, emotionally, and because I didn't know nothing about anything. And when I finally realized what it meant to be saved, I cried for 5 years, knowing that I would never see my dad again. And then the Lord, one day, He took that burden off of my shoulders, because He knew it was too much for me to carry. And He spoke to my spirit, said, your dad made his choice. He rejected me, he cursed me, he cussed me. And he's in hell, and there is nothing that you can do about it. I hardly ever think of him anymore. And then I got my first apartment. I got my first job. Things that my dad said that I would never do. And then I lost my job 3 years later, and I had to go back to California for a very short time with my mom. And what happened was not good, and I won't go into that. But I left there and I came back to Missouri, and in that time, from 2001 to 2003, I lived in Farmington, and then in 2003 I moved back over here to Potosi, and that's when I started at the radio station the first time. And then the nightmare began. I would get these rashes all over my arms. They would turn into bumps. It would leave this yellow pus. And sores all over my body. And one on my leg was that big. And I'm not kidding. It was that big around on my leg. They would fall out from underneath me. While I was walking, I would get headaches that would make me double over in pain. Severe shaking. And I'm not talking about just regular shaking. I mean, just real bad shaking all over my body, and I couldn't control it. I couldn't stop it. And the irregular heartbeat that hit me as well. And I had to have 2 rides to and from everywhere that I had to go, including church, store, and all that. And after the shaking stopped, I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. People had to pick me up and walk, carry me. And when I left here in 2007, it all stopped except for the little bit of the shaking. And then in 2008, one of the worst experiences I ever had, and I won't go into that either, not on this video, but because of that incident, some of you know what it is, but some of you may not. But I was depressed for 2 years. I wouldn't go anywhere. I wouldn't do anything. I wouldn't talk to nobody. I would do nothing. That 2 years is a blur. Nothing but a blur. And then one of my friends called me and prayed for me on the phone for a half an hour, and that depression lifted off of me. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful. I'm thankful for her praying for me. And then three years and a few months later, I would lose my mom. To a stroke and a heart attack at the same time. I had to put her on hospice, and she only lasted 20 days after she had the stroke and the heart attack. They said that her brain was dead, and there was damage to her heart. And because of all the people, my friends, each and every one of you, you know who you are, praying for me and supporting me at the Quartet Convention, I was able to make it through it. And then she passed away just 4 or 5 days after I got home. And I had to get rid of everything. I had to sell everything. I had to make the decisions that were very hard for me to make, but I had to because there was no one else. And they had to cremate my mom because they didn't have insurance. She didn't have insurance. There was no funeral. There was nothing like that. And there was a reverse mortgage on the house, and I knew that I was going to have to move, and I didn't want to stay there, even if I wanted to, which I didn't. And I went into shock over something that happened, and when I came back to myself, I just sat in the chair and I looked up and I said, Lord, I can't take this. I can't deal with this. You're going to have to take this. You're going to have to handle it because your shoulders are a lot bigger than mine. I'm giving it to you. You take it. You deal with it. You handle it. And that's when a miracle came the next morning. And a call came, said, take this number down, call this lady, she's going to come and get you. And that was in November of last year. And I was at the radio station up until a month ago. And now, praise the Lord, I have my own place again. And in just another week or so, 2 weeks, I'll have my internet radio station again. God has been so good to me. And He's blessed me with all of my friends, each and every one of you. I could name names, but I would forget somebody, but I just thankful for all of my Facebook friends, each and every one of you. Cowboy Roy tips his hat and his heart to you all. Thank you so much for praying for me. Thank you so much for supporting me. All the years that you have supported me. And keep praying for me. Keep praying for me. I love you all. more than words can ever say. I love you all. And to God, to Jesus be all the glory and the praise for taking someone that was so lost and undone without God or His Son and placing His Spirit down in my heart, saving me, changing me, giving me my joy and my peace back, and putting a smile on my face and a smile in my heart. I know this has been a very long testimony, but I hope you all enjoy. Once again, happy trails from Cowboy Roy. God bless.